The title of my paper is Representing Crisis, Re-envisioning Hope. During times of uncertainty and the crisis, literature and film come to terms with diverse aspects of human experiences. The multimedia storytelling confronts physical and mental pain, addresses hygienic and ideological challenges, raises social and environmental concerns, and explores themes of suffering and catharsis, trauma and redemption, loss and epiphany, and melancholy and hope. I seek to situate the methods of representing crisis and re-envisioning hope into the context of environmentality, sustainability, ecology, objects, and Chinese storytelling against the larger backdrop of key issues in the recent material turn, affective turn, and environmental humanities. By examining the intersections between these thematic frameworks, I attempt to deepen our understanding of how crises are portrayed and how hope is redefined in relation to environmental concerns, social political ecologies and ideologies, material objects and things, and the power of storytelling in the global context. Environmentality is a term used to describe an approach to understanding complex interplays of power, governance, and representations of human-environment interactions. In his The Future of Environmental Criticism, Lawrence Buell examines environmentality across the genre spectrum and argues that all literary texts encode a certain type of environmentality consciously or unconsciously. A text in environmental unconscious is more deeply embedded even than is the political unconscious. Partially inspired by Michel Foucault's critical approaches to power, subjectivity, governmentality, biopolitics, and biopower, Aaron Agrabo's environmentality interprets two different yet related attitudes toward forests in terms of the technologies of governmentality and the making of environmental subjects in northern India and beyond. In the 1920s, the local people set fire to forests to resist colonial control. Yet in the 1990s, they began to converse forests and thus build up new environmental identities, combining with political ecology and feminist environmentalism. I would argue that environmentality teases out the multi-layered human-environment context and connections in terms of human agency and governmentality, ecological objects and their independency, power, knowledge, and environmental injustice. I propose the term ecology as a means of merging ideology and ecology to better capture and analyze the intricate interconnections between ideological and ecological factors. This term allows for a comprehensive exploration of the entanglements and interdependencies among human belief systems, social ideologies, and ecological dynamics. Luis Althusser famously states that in ideology, the real relation is inevitably invested in the imaginary relation, a relation that expresses a will, conservative, conformist, reformist, or revolutionary, a hope or a nostalgia, rather than describing a reality. The Ecological Society of America defines ecology as the study of the relationship between living organisms, including humans and their physical environment. It seeks to understand the vital connections between plants and animals and the world around them. Ecology also provides information about the benefits of ecosystems and how we can use Earth's resources in ways that leave the environment healthy for future generations. Through the term ecology, I aim to position environmental objects within the nexus of materiality, reality, and mentality. This concept seeks to examine how the physical existence of environmental objects intersects with the subjective perception and interpretation of reality. By considering the material aspects of the environmental alongside the mental constructs and ideological frameworks that shape our understanding of them, we can gain deeper insights into the complex relationships between humans and the natural world. My understanding of ecological and environmental storytelling benefits from Rob Nixon's study of slow violence, environmentalism for the poor, and environmental storytelling, in which he raises the question of how can environmental writers craft emotionally involving stories from disasters that are slow-moving and attritional rather than explosive and spectacular. He further lists the following strategies to address the ecological threats and crises. To confront slow violence requires then that we plot and give shape to formless threats whose fatal repercussions are dispersed across space and time. Use striking visual imagery, reconfiguring big stories on a human scale, tell stories no one else can tell, find powerful analogies that resonate, refuse conventional narrative framework. Environmental objects showcase the world of things surrounding our living environment, and also the aesthetic encounters affective attachment, interdisciplinary knowing and understanding, and human experiences and knowledge inside and outside the body. Concerning the issues and the methods of material turn, I borrow Bill Brown's sense of things and focus on the social life and the biography of environmental objects, trying to locate the trajectories of objects' human identity and to tease out the entanglements of objectivity and subjectivity. My source of inspiration also includes the affective turn, which is one of the main topics explored in Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari's A Thousand Plateaus. As Eric Scholes summarizes, feelings are personal and biographical, emotions are social, and affects are pre-personal. The affective turn addresses the realm of affect, emotions, and ways in which they shape our experiences and interactions with the world. By integrating insights from affective turn, I aim to explore the affective dimensions of environmental objects, examining how they evoke emotions, create connections, and influence our perceptions and engagements with the environment. Environmental humanities, eco-criticism, and nature writing include environmental philosophy, ecosophy, and environmental ethics in the 1970s, environmental history in the 1980s, and environmental literature, cultural studies, anthropology, geography, and political ecology since the 1980s. The three waves of environmental humanities shift the focuses and the scopes of investigations from the nature and the non-human world to the urban life and the environmental justice, and to transnational and multi-ethnic ecological crises and the sustainable futures. We also need to pay more attention to symptomatic eco-ambiguity, the complex, contradictory interactions between people and the environment with a significant non-human presence. I explore the scopes, scales, and methods of ideological storytelling and multimedia exhibitions of deforestation and afforestation, pollution and purification, wastelands and ecosystems in modern and contemporary China, ranging from literary imaginations to artistic expressions, from realist observations to modernist representations, and to environmentalist interpretations. Biographies of waters, rivers, and oceans provide insight into various aspects such as the scarcity of water and the surge of life resources, the challenges of water pollution and the pursuit of purification measures, the ideological, ecological, and hygienic stories, Anthropocene, de-Anthropocene, and the human-centered and non-human perspective and narratives. The air narratives and smog stories are unfolded and developed along the veins of Oriental aesthetics, literary writing, visual presentation, and avant-garde art, the grassroots movement, the practice of daily life, collective ecological unconsciousness, and the biophilic and aesthetic impulse. Air, fog, smoke, and smog as environmental objects can also well related to geographical distribution, public health concern, ecological crisis and propaganda, mainstream scientific discourse, official and personal concerns and warnings, New Deal on traffic laws, and modification of economic development models. The trajectories of plastics in the city and the country can be traced and investigated from the perspectives of the scale and dissemination of plastics, the exploitation of colonialism and global capitalism, doomsday of human civilization and the ecosystem, and the mortality or finitude of life. Trees and forests can be understood as environmental objects that illuminate the relationship between humans and the natural world. Through the concept of phytography or plant writing, we can explore critical issues relevant to environmental humanities, ecologicism, and the pursuit of sustainable future. Due to the time limit, I can only briefly talk about my study of plant writing and storytelling. I consider a wide variety of literary and cinematic works and their photographic approaches evidenced in Kong Jiesheng's groundbreaking Forest Primeval, Cheng's pioneering novella The King of Trees, Xu Gang's bold and brave reportage Loggers Wake Up, and his recent environmental reflection The Great Forest, Wang Zhi'an's apocalyptic The Tragic Forest, Yan Lianke's Beijing story Garden Number 711, The Ultimate Last Memo of Beijing, Hu Donglin's encyclopedic eco-writing Notebooks from Mountains and Forests, and Chen Yingsong's eco-critical The Forest is Silent. By exploring the storytelling of deforestation and afforestation, the rise of ecological and ethical consciousness, and the complexity of human-nature relationship, I understand trees as environmental objects and thus to investigate contemporary Chinese multimedia plant writing and storytelling along the ranges of token of marred humanity, sign of eco-critical awakening, indicator of climate crisis, and the illustration of biophilia entanglement. The section of eulogy, elegy, and the smokestack memory explores the imagery of smokestacks both as a concrete object and abstract concept, emerging in works from early Chinese futurist eulogy to modernist elegy, from Maoist propaganda to post-socialist eco-critical reflections and post-fifth generation requiem for communism, and from literary imagination to artistic exhibition. I would first briefly address the aesthetic and the political encounter with the gigantic smokestacks in Republican China so as to contextualize the recent smokestack sentiments. As early as the 1920s, modern Chinese writers of the literary school Creation Society passionately embraced the advent of Western science and technology. The Creation Society's leading poet, Gong Ruo, eulogized spectacles of a prosperous industrial metropolis, using the metaphor of a harmonious symphony and happy wedding between nature and human life. He also compared the smokes of steamboat smokestacks to black peonies, noble flowers of the 20th century, and the district mother of modern civilization. Such images, especially the black peonies, exerted a powerful influence on popular perceptions of modernization and modernity. Nevertheless, some other writers hold different and critical attitudes toward smokestacks and the local westernized industrialization. For instance, in 1926, Gao Changhong once depicted modern Shanghai as follows. People say that, seen from afar, Shanghai is a smokestack. It is right in this smokestack we can see scientific achievements, obscene capitalist, imperialist iron hills, newest and highest artistic creations and all others. In 1937, Lin Huiyin, a female poet, architect, and a core member of the literary group The Beijing School, composed a poem, Spring Scenes of the Ancient Capital, transforming the abstract modern times and industrial civilization into visible and tangible smokestacks, inharmoniously juxtaposed with another side of everyday life objects of the old city. Lin's representation of smokestacks demonstrated her keen aesthetic and environmental awareness when confronting an increasingly polluted and vanishing ancient capital. After the year of 1949, at the beginning of the socialist regime, the smokestacks were eulogized as a symbolic icon of socialist industrial modernization. The Maoist vision of the modernized Beijing was best manifested in Mao's conversation with Peng Zhen, the first mayor of Beijing in the new republic. Standing on top of the gate of heavenly peace, Mao profoundly and proudly pronounced, "We will see a forest of smokestacks from here." For Lin Huiyin, this forest of smokestacks was the recurrence of the environmental nightmare of modernity, in which glamorous black peonies and the dark noble flowers were blooming in the very heart of Beijing. One salient example of smokestack in this early stage of socialist China can be found in Xian Qun's 1952 film adaptation of Lao She's 1951 three-act play, Dragon Bear Ditch. The cinema provides a socialist realist scenario with an ending of a remote smokestack, a coordinate light tower, and a point of pride of Chinese socialist industrialization and modernization. During the Maoist regime, the smokestacks has been transformed into an icon of socialist construction and pervaded literary texts, theatrical performances, cinematic productions, and socialist paintings, water, ink, and oil. Nevertheless, since China entered the reform era, from reportage to fiction and poetry, from cinematic representations to art exhibitions, the growing challenges of ecological deterioration propelled Chinese film directors, artists, and writers to expose current industrial pollution and to call for environmental protection. For instance, Sha Qing's Beijing Out of Balance revealed the lack of water resources in Beijing and warned people of the costs and dangers in the obsession with producing iron, steel, forgery cokes, and plastics. Ye Guangchen's Peking Mulberries captured a scene that the ancestral grove is demolished and rebuilt as a cement factory, where smokestacks spray gray dust and crushing, grinding, and dedusting equipment making loud noises. The most remarkable, controversial, yet ephemeral documentary is Chai Jing's Under the Dome, a belated eco-critical epiphany and elegy. She compellingly calls our attention to towering factory smokestacks, which were once regarded as an overwhelming sign and a dominant symbol of Chinese industrial development and modernization, yet now was observed as a source of air pollution and environmental health risks for Beijing to its neighboring regions and to China at large. Under the Dome provides a scientific, multidisciplinary, personal and emotional investigation of the prolonged and severe smog haunting Beijing, China, and lists smokestacks and related industrial and chemical pollutants as the source of Chinese environmental and ecological crisis. In the same year of 2015, Jia Dangke's Smoke Journeys, a 7-minute dialogue-free documentary made for Greenpeace, begins with smokestacks, cooling towers of thermal power plants as an iconic and giant existence. Jia gave shapes to slow violence and presents coughing peasants in the countryside, a girl with sandproof headscarf talking to her lover in front of smokestacks, a masked boy playing soccer in the city, a young couple of miners sending their baby to the doctor of respiratory diseases, urban inhabitants struggling in their everyday life besieged by smog, and in the end, a masked teenager sketching a beautiful sky, on a dusty car to imagine a hopeful environmental future for the silent majority. Zhao Liang's film Bohemians provides an artistic and documentary representation of the vast mining industry, ghost city, Mongolian prairies, piles of smokestacks, air pollution, and its catastrophic impact on coal miners' health. Even Stephen Chou's blockbuster film The Mermaid starts with the shocking scenes of polluted waters, slaughtered animals, uncontrolled deforestation, and the piles of smokestacks and black smokes, among others, to exhibit the environmental and ecological dilemma and calamity in contemporary human societies. Nevertheless, it is also worth noting that years earlier than this transitional time, marked by the belated awakening of eco-critical concerns, another type of structural feeling emerged and endured in the post-Maoist, post-fifth generation, or the sixth or underground generation film productions. Jiang Wen's In the Heat of the Sun captures a dysfunctional smokestack, a relic of Maoist industrial construction, which stands out as a vertical rite of passage to exhibit the protagonist's courage, adventure, flirtation, romance, masculinity, and self-esteem among a gang of wild teenagers during the Cultural Revolution. Zhang Yuan's 17 years subtly situates family conflicts and reconciliation or homecoming into the context of a post-industrial northern city, where smokestacks, together with other gigantic objects, visualize the disorientation of the protagonist within the changing and challenging urban environment. Wang Bing's 551-minute experimental documentary Tiexi West of the Tracks visualizes 3 smokestacks, one visible and the other 2 rather dim in a smoggy winter day, as a material token of the declining socialist industry in the rusty area of northeast China. Liang's Blank Shelf ends with a striking shot of a smokestack of the crematorium, which emits black smoke and provides a dark epiphany about fortune and misery, innocence and crime, for a young coal miner and survivor to ponder on his tragicomedy at the threshold of life and death in an uneven post-Maoist and developmentalist local society. 11 years before shooting his 7-minute eco-critical documentary Smoke Journeys, Xie Zhangke's The World ends with the death of the female protagonist and her boyfriend against the reckless and repressing image of a towering factory smokestack belching gas flames into the Beijing sky behind him. Xie Zhangke's 24 City envisions a transient image of a gigantic smokestack above the deserted factory buildings with broken windows and glasses, and tells the story of post-Maoist new generation's struggle and rebel. Abandoning his parents' profession, stepping out from the track designed by his father generation, and embarking on a new path with passion and expectation. One episode of Xie Zhangke's documentary I Wish I Knew features Huang Baomei, a historical figure and female model textile worker in the 1950s Shanghai. Jia incorporates episodes from Xie Jin's 1958 black and white biographic film about Huang Baomei, showcasing the image of smokestacks twice from Xie's biopic to reiterate the collective past as well as strength and pride of working class in the socialist metropolis. The most sophisticated and representative illumination of the smokestack's metamorphosis in this vein appears in Zhang Meng's The Piano in a Factory, an elegy for a bygone working class community and a revisit to the industrial past in northern East China. Dai Jinhua understands Zhang Meng's psychoanalytic understanding of the 2 smokestacks as the feelers of the working class, and further responds with an insightful interpretation that the blasting of the smokestacks not only extends and reiterates Chen Guiling's feelings and helplessness as he reluctantly gives up his daughter, but also provides a straightforward castration scene for the symbolic death of the worker as a father. I would take a different approach and argue that these functional smokestacks lose their environmental jeopardy and remain or function as a relic of the socialist and industrial past, a witness to the change of working community and class consciousness in post-Maoist cinematic representations, a token of nostalgia of the bygone era and the collective awareness, a landmark, tower-like clock or time machine, signpost, and a precious friendship to be cherished in post-industrial memory and trauma at the beginning of the 21st century. This selected and distinctive storytelling provides an illuminating entry point into the shifting material trajectories, social dynamics, and the emerging environmental consciousness. They also address the structural transformation of personal feelings and public emotions against the great backdrop of industrial, de-industrial, and post-industrial eras, and the consequential ecological impacts in both contemporary China and the wider global context. My research project attempts to shed light on the prehistory and afterlife of environmental crisis, the pursuit of sustainable future, and the longing for ecological hope. Thank you very much.